Yeah, let's do takeaways. Okay, so Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle. I think sometimes we have to not make mountains out of molehills. God, is that a boob joke? Anyway, point is, I don't think that it was meant to be. About eugenics and white supremacy and all of that. But unfortunately, it was kind of rolled into that. So how do you as a brand kind of deal with it? I think that they're right in not acknowledging it because I don't think one way or the other they would get the response that they want or they'd fall like on the positive side. This isn't quite like the astronomer controversy, which like there was clearly a right and a wrong or like intent behind it. So I think the way that they're handling it is the correct way. But then also I think there's so much to be said for like, the people that are reacting to this, like why are people kind of jumping on top of it when we realize that it could even be bots that are trying to like, strum up all this controversy for no reason. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think one takeaway is, when you're creating a new campaign or in any of your marketing efforts, of course, it is worth trying to look outside yourself and to look at the campaign, the messaging, whatever the asset is, to look at it and try to see it from an outsider's perspective to figure out like, okay, what are our blind spots? Does this does this come off wrong in some way? What are some of the consequences we might see as a result of this? Like, I think it's absolutely worth trying to think outside yourself and look at that kind of thing, but at the same time, you can't let that paralyze your actions in that you still have to make decisions, you still have to move forward with things. I don't know if obviously we don't know if American Eagles team had these internal conversations. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but worth considering that.
yeah.
And yeah, I think that was my big takeaway there.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of me is like, I don't want to live in a world where I have to think about every possible angle of what can be misconstrued and what could be like, seen negatively. But on the flip side, that's kind of where we're at right now. And the fact that people were willing to jump on top of this and kind of see the, you know, relation there means that you're gonna kind of have to deal with it, which sucks. So yeah, agree with Amanda that you need to, try to view it from as many angles as possible. But here's the thing, right? Where it's like having that diversity in like opinion within your own team makes that easier to be able to
Yes.
see one way or the other. So,
Yes. 100%. All right, our next story on getting mentioned in the AI overviews and ChatGPT. Yeah, I mean, big takeaway is PR is super important, friends. We in today's, in modern marketing now, we are seeing that we're coming full circle with the classic marketing functions. So make sure your PR machine is well oiled and you are taking advantage of the opportunities in niche and trade publications so that one day you too will also be mentioned in ChatGPT or the AI overview.
Yeah, my takeaway is now is the time for you to focus on thought leadership and content creation in terms of like what is most unique to you, to your company, to your like founder insight, like your customer stories, like how your customer is uniquely using your product, like everything that is unique to you that can only be said about you and your product and company is now is the time to write that all up, go on podcasts and talk about it, make sure that the transcript is easily accessible online and get that content out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So marketing topic number three, about AI skill gaps. Basically, if you're like a junior marketer or you're thinking about getting into marketing, start figuring out how you can use AI to as a tool or a process for the way that you're creating your work. It's not going to be, for everything. And as Amanda mentioned earlier, you should definitely learn how to write and like learn taste, how to make connections, because AI isn't going to be able to do that. So how are you incorporating it into what makes you human, and like what connections you're making? Yeah, go learn AI for like, some of the processes that you're learning.
Yeah, and hone the skills that AI is like unlikely to replace so that you can then leverage AI tools to your advantage. So be irreplaceable in your skills and your capabilities while also figuring out how to make yourself better or more scalable through some of through this technology.
Yeah. And then for our nostalgia marketing roundup, I guess as a company, just like how can you kind of make those references? I mean, I think part of what is also, nostalgia here was the Sydney Sweeney ad, right? Calling back the, Calvin Klein and Brooke Shields commercial and ad. That's part of like what I think American Eagle was trying to like bring up. Um, it was controversial here, but like, as a company, if, it still like worked, right? It still got them a lot of views. Their stock went up and all that. So I think the intent of it, like of like bringing up nostalgia and like what references you could do to kind of tie it back to like your company, that's still like a takeaway that I think is like super important. Like, how can you kind of like talk about that in that way? Also, like we can throw in the Gwyneth Paltrow and astronomer ad where it's like calling back to Gwyneth Paltrow's relationship to Coldplay's Chris Martin and their unconscious uncoupling. Sorry, their conscious uncoupling. That's all just like nostalgia and all these like references, right? And we've talked about that, like how meme culture kind of works in terms of bringing up nostalgia for like people to like, remember those references. So how is it that your company can kind of, tie into things that are already like shared culture?
Yeah, I think shared culture is a great point. Maybe what I'll also call out in this is when we think about nostalgia marketing at the moment, who is it for? And it's looking like it's largely for elder millennials and maybe younger Gen Xers. But what that tells me as a marketer is that I think at this moment in time, it's the elder millennials and Gen Xers who are the ones with the most spending power
Mhm.
at the time. That's my hunch, right? So maybe it's sure you can do nostalgia marketing as in what you're doing, but it's also just, continue to figure out who your audience really is, who your most valuable audience is, and how do you speak their language, share in their cultural moments, and really get on their level.
Agree. But I think that also it's nostalgia for millennials and Gen Xers now, but what will the nostalgia be for Gen Zers, right? Like part of kind of learning the culture now, the shared culture, is that eventually all those references are probably going to make a comeback, right? So what are you learning about, your industry that can then, call back to those things later? Because eventually, when Gen Z does have that, spending power, and that culture, supremacy, you'll probably still be working, right? You'll probably still be in marketing, so you might be able to like reference those things too. So I think it just speaks to how much you should be um, curious about like, what people are talking about, I mean, I guess another point for being online all the time is like learning what people are talking about, and that gives us that like shared culture and like the viral memes that like people are talking about. So educate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.